The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our How to Visually Schedule Production Orders and Capacities in Dynamics NAV webinar. I'm Michael Intravartolo, the Marketing Manager for Solution Systems. Today we are very fortunate to have Dr. Martin Karlowitch with us from Netronic, and he will be conducting this overview. So let me pass it on over to Dr. Martin, and we will let him get on started.
Okay, thanks, Michael, for having us or having me today in your webcast. Welcome, everybody. My name is Martin Karlowitch. I'm from Germany and representing as a managing director a company called Netronic. So before we look at what we can do and what we offer as an add-in solution to NAV, I want to give you a quick overview of who we are and what we do. And I know that sometimes people receive too many information over a day or a week, and sometimes it's hard to remember everything. Every kind of information that you get hold of. So if you want to kind of remember 3 things from today's webinar, then we can put them into one sentence. So what we offer or what we focus on as Netronic is to develop visual scheduling solutions, and we provide them in a way that they are fully integrated into NAV, and they are fully integrated because they are real add-in solutions rather than add-on that you attach to the system. So our products that we deliver to help you do visual scheduling, they completely fit into the role-tailored client versions of Dynamics NAV. And so actually these are the 3 things which I think which are most important to keep in mind when thinking about, hey, what was this German guy in the Solution Systems webinar talking about? So it is talking about visual scheduling and how you can work with an add-in in Dynamics NAV so that this visual scheduling is really fully integrated into your ERP environment. And then if you want, or if you like to remember 2 more things, then all our add-ins that we provide for NAV, they are not only based on the standard NAV systems, but they also do not require any changes to the NAV standard, which means that as long as you work with standard NAV, you can implement them very, very fast and will not need a lot of training, because the folks at Solution Systems, they will train you on how to work with standard NAV and how to understand the standard NAV data anyway. And so what we provide you is just a kind of a visual interface to the standard system, and as you're familiar with the standard system, you will immediately understand what you will see, and also as there are no modifications to the system needed, you can install it very fast, and very fast means it's a question of hours and not of days or weeks and months, and so that from the first day you implement the system, you will see your production data in a visual production plan data in a visual way and can change them to drag and drop. And then although we as a company kind of believe in delivering software or standard software products opposed to very customized and individualized services, we have kind of dedicated products to support the different standard scheduling processes that you have in NAV. So today we focus on our add-in that can help you to deal with production orders and capacity. So this is one add-in which we call the Visual Production Scheduler. But we have also similar functionality for folks working with the Jobs module and the Resource Planning module and NAV, and also for companies working with service orders and resource planning. And both the Jobs and the Resource Planning and the service order dispatching and service resource planning, these add-ins will be subjects of webinars that will come, I think, in the end of February and end of March. So stay tuned for kind of more webinar invitations from that you will receive from Solution Systems. And so we as Netronic, we are a small German software company, slightly more than 20 people. We are all based here in Germany. We are actually a very reliable partner to the industry, so have been founded almost 40 years ago. I came into Netronic 4 years ago in a way of management transition process. So the former and previous MD and major shareholder of Netronic, Dr. Schmitz, he wanted to retire, I think, the last 10 years because he turned 70 years old the last year. And he was looking for a successor, and with some guided fortune, he and I met when I was working as a regular employee for a big American software corporation. And after a while, he offered me the opportunity to take over not only the management of the company, but also a major portion of the shares of the company. And after a while of consideration, I decided to leave my large enterprise career path and becoming the manager of a small software organization. When I did this was 4 years ago. I just turned 40 years ago, so that was kind of a very intense decision-making process that I had to do, kind of switching my roles, switching my career path, changing my life, changing my complete work environment and also my work responsibility. And so far I kind of tend to say that it was the second best decision of my life, with the best one was getting married and becoming a father. So when I made the decision 4 years ago to invest not only my career but also some of my money into Netronic, I looked at it from the outside and I based my decision on a couple of things that I saw and which I found quite unique and quite interesting. And that is, as a small company, we are focused on and Netronic also had been focused before I joined on one specific topic. So it is not that we are a small company and we're doing a little bit services here, a little bit services here, and a little bit thing here and there, but we have a very, very strong focus on one topic, and that is building software to generate to generate Gantt charts, which means our focus is really on building software to visualize time-related, resource-oriented planning data with dependencies. And the other thing that that I really like is the way we have been doing this for a long while, and because we have been that focus that strong, we have had this strong focus on Gantt chart. I think we feel we do it quite well, and we have a lot of expertise here in the team. So we have a core team in the development which had been doing this for the last 20-25 years, and all these people have been stayed with the company, so that we have a plethora of knowledge on how to deal with this scheduling data in a visual way. And the other thing that intrigued me is that we always have been doing our business as a product type of business. And this helped Netronic also before I joined to kind of build a global business. So although we are a small company, we today serve a global market, and we do more than half of our business outside of Germany. And when I say 60% outside of Germany, then this is not just in the neighbor countries like Belgium, which is 5 kilometers away from where I am, or Netherlands, which is 10 kilometers away from where I am, but we do a quarter of our business actually in the United States. Depending on how the business goes, we do 10 to 15% in Southeast Asia, and then of course we do a lot of business here in Germany, in Europe, and then 40% roughly in Germany. So and me coming from a management position in an international organization, I like this very much, that this small company, thanks to having a focus on a specific product category and building products rather than individual services, had been able to build an international and serve an international client base. And the core product that has enabled us to do this, and I will briefly talk about this, is a product that we call Varchart Xscan, which is a tool that Netronic had been selling to software developers. So for many, many years, for kind of 2 decades, we as a company have been selling a tool to other software vendors, and had and our kind of the business idea was to serve a make or buy need in the phase of software development. So not only for you, and I assume we have a couple of manufacturing clients on this call now, and you all have to do make or buy decisions in your daily work. And the same kind of decision need also exists in the software industry. So software vendors also, they have their core competence, and this is the software they build internally, but there are also functional needs for their software that not necessarily belong to their software, to their core competence, and then they buy tools or code from the outside. And dealing with this time-related, resource-oriented planning data in a visual way is quite a challenge when you develop software. So although this concept of a Gantt chart with a time scale here and some resources here and the tasks here is fairly trivial, there's a lot of software complexity under the hood if you want to build this in a way that it can cope with B2B requirements, especially in manufacturing environment. And so this is where we had been putting in our strength, and where a lot of software vendors actually decided to work with our tool. And then from time to time, we also deal with large enterprise clients, especially when they have their own software development departments who are then tasked to build an internal scheduling application. And then 2 years ago, I made the strategic decision that we should kind of literally take this product and build based on this product, build add-ins for Dynamics NAV. So 2 years ago, we launched the first product, which is actually the product we talk about today, the Visual Production Scheduler, as an add-in proposition to Dynamics NAV. And the reason that brought us here, there can be seen from the next slide, which gives an impression of the kind of companies we have been working with, and we still work with the last 20 years, and that we still work with. So a lot of these customers kind of still are or these companies still using the product either in their applications or as part of their own internal scheduling applications. And you see that also Microsoft decided to buy this Varchart XScan product, and they bought it in an older version more than 10 years ago to build very basic Gantt charts for older version of Dynamics NAV, and also for Dynamics AX, which is their ERP system which they target kind of the large enterprises. So there had been in the past, when people bought Dynamics NAV, there had been a bare bone, a visual production scheduler, which had been used by smaller NAV clients, and by smaller NAV clients who at that point of time decided to stick close to the standard. But I think it had not been widely used, but obviously there were some NAV partners on the globe who kind of used and used this old built by Microsoft production scheduler for their clients. And while Microsoft came out with the new version, with the row-tailored client version, and now, I mean, this was with version 29 R2, and now we have version 2015, they made a lot of changes to the product. They changed the architecture, they introduced the row-tailored client concept, they started to work, which I find very, very compelling and strong, on the close integration between NAV as the ERP system and the Microsoft Office product, which is the working environment that most of us work in and work with on a day-to-day basis. And so they worked on all these changes, and then they decided to remove external parts from the product and said, hey, now we leave it up to the partners and to the channel to kind of deliver this functionality again. And so this turned out to be a business opportunity for us, because we, as a company with the expertise of dealing with such a data, out of the sudden, 2.5 years ago, received a lot of calls from NAV partners and customers who were looking at that kind of functionality. And then we presented our tool, but in order to work with our tool, you need to have development skills in C# and .NET, which we found that although there are a lot of NAV developers, not that many people had. And so in the end, what we decided is not trying to sell the tool, so the Swiss Army knife of building Gantt charts, to people, but that we say, okay, we should eat our own dog food. So we should take our tool and build something that is integrated and that is immediately useful in Dynamics NAV. And so 2 years ago, we launched the first product, and this is the product I will show you in a minute, which we call Visual Production Scheduler, which in the very first version was just a more or a better looking way of what had been part of the standard classic client Dynamics NAV. But then what we said is now, hey, we need to see a difference, because the old production schedule that Microsoft built was just one feature that this giant corporation had as part of the big Dynamics NAV proposition. But now the Visual Production Scheduler, which we call VPS, is no longer just a feature that had been developed by Microsoft, but it is a strategic product for a new company, because for us it really marked the kind of entrance in a second market. So we continue to do our software development business, or the business of developing software tools for software developers, but now we found a market where we can build small applications based on the tools that we have, and with which we can address a new market and which we can work with new companies. And so we said, hey, we cannot leave the product as it is, but we have to continue to invest into it and to develop in it. And when we came to market with it, people asked, hey, what is your roadmap for the product? And said, hey, I don't have a roadmap, but my roadmap is to talk to partners and to customers, to listen, get their feedback, and then very quickly and in an agile way enhance the product alongside with the requirements of the partners and the market. And this had worked quite well over the last 2 years, so we really were able to enhance the product every 3 to 4 months. And now that the product, it is not yet mature, but it is it had been grown significantly, and now we are switching kind of to an approach where we have 2 releases a year, so one in spring and one in autumn. And what we also did is not just build and enhance the product for visual production scheduling, but we actually also looked into other Dynamics NAV modules that I mentioned briefly before, and that will be part of the webcasts in the February and March time, where we also see time-related planning data with dependencies, and this is in the jobs module where we have the jobs, the job task, and so on, and in the service module where you need to really dispatch service orders to the service technicians, so that now 2 years after the launch of the initial product, we now have a suite of add-ins that directly tie into Dynamics NAV, and that we sell to a global partner network. So because the DNA of our company, as I mentioned earlier, is to do an international business, so we from day one started this business international, and we said, okay, this is a product business. We will provide products that work with standard NAV that partners and customers can quickly understand and implement, and so we will look for global partners. And one of the first partners actually with whom we signed a reseller contract and a partner agreement were Solution Systems, so we're quite happy working with them. They obviously serve the American market, but we have partners throughout Europe. We have partners in South Africa, a couple of them in Eastern Asia, and also in Australia. Now we need to mark New Zealand red because we just signed an agreement with a partner there. So in 2 years' time, we managed to really got a lot of traction, both on a product perspective with enhancing the product portfolio and strengthening the product, but also from the market perspective. And actually a lot of the partners that we have already sold the first products and got the first implementations going last year. And so I think with this, this is enough about who we are, and now I suggest we look at the product. You will be familiar with this. So this is Dynamics NAV 2015. I will demo it in 2015, but the product, as I show you here, has the exact same functionality and the exact same way of working in NAV 2013 R2 and in NAV 2013, and it also works with the Rotaler client of 29 R2. There's one specific function that is not available in 29R2. This is the visual bill of material, and I will come to this in a minute. And the reason for this is that we use functionality that Microsoft brought to NAV with the 2013 release, and as this functionality is not available in 29R2, we cannot use it there in a visual way. So the way of how all our add-ins are always built is that they tie in the respective departmental menus. So now we're talking about manufacturing, we're talking about planning, and so our visual production scheduler can be just called from here as a list item in the planning. And now what happened technically is that its standard NAV page opens, so you continue to have the role center here. You have the page-specific menu bar here that you can configure and change, and where you can also add ribbons. And now this is a page, but other than most of the other pages that you are familiar with, this page does not contain a table or a card, but now this page contains technically our control add-in, and it represents information from a couple of underlying NAV tables and present your production schedule in a graphical way. So the view that the visual production scheduler starts with is what we call the production order view, which gives you a high-level picture of your production orders, sorted by their status and also color-coded by their status. So the planned production orders are shown in light blue, the firm planned in dark blue, and the released in orange. We don't show finished production orders, and I just, before I started, I filtered out the simulated production orders. So if you in your environment work with simulated production orders, you're also able to see them here. It is just a definition of how you and your partner define one of the data filters that manages the amount of data that is pushed to this visual production schedule. Technically, when I opened this page, which shows the data, is because this is an add-in, the data does not leave NAV. So whenever you have an add-on solution, you need to take the data out of the database, put it into a new database, which kind of sits next to your NAV system. Then you work with the data, make the changes, and then update the database. What we do here is we just load the data in memory, and now you can work with the data into memory, and when you press the save button, then we update the database. So kind of from a data protection standpoint, you're quite safe here because the data your NAV data never leave the NAV system. So what we see here is we have the Timescale, which gives us a certain a view on a certain period of time. So here from Thursday the 28th of January to next week Monday. If this is not my time horizon I want to work with, I can put the mouse here on the time scale, move the mouse wheel and change the horizon, so then the time scale adapts. I have configured my system here in a way that I look, I think, 3 days back and 3 weeks into the future. This is something that you as a user can do, or that your partner can do for you. So you see here the starting date is looking 3 days back and 3 weeks into the future. If I think I need to look 1 week back and maybe 4 weeks out, then I can put this in here. I need to reload my chart. I fit it into view, and now I'm looking at a longer period of time. And now if I want to drill down into details, put my mouse here and work with the mouse wheel, and then you see how the time scale ticks that you see here, how they automatically adapt. So now I'm looking at single days with 2 hours interval, and I can drill down as far as into a 5 minutes interval here, so that depending on what your time horizon is, you can quickly adapt the data that you see on the screen to your planning horizon. When we look at the bars, you recognize that in this particular view here, that these bars can either be colored or they can be white. And the reason for this is that with Dynamics NAV, when you set up the capacities, you can also define shift calendars, and with the shift calendars, obviously you define for respective work centers and machine centers when there is working time and when there is non-working time. And this is reflected here on these bars. So whenever you see that these bars are colored, this means this is working time. Whenever these bars are white, this is non-working time. And so if we take this operation, which starts here, then we work on this, and then there is this long break, and this means the long break just is because there's weekend, and then we continue to work on here on Monday. So if I would move this bar that it would entirely sit in a working time, then it would be automatically shorter. And then you can see also these differences if you drill down into one production order. So now I click here on this little triangle, and now I actually see the routing of this specific production order as it has been defined in NAV. So we start on the assembly department, and then we have a couple of painting steps in the painting department, from the painting cabin to the painting inspection, back into the assembly department and on the packing table. And now you see also in the background the calendar with the different information of the different shifts and the different work time and non-work times, where the non-work times are grayed out here in the background and the work times are shown in white. As this is an add-in, we can jump from here to kind of the context-specific NAV cards with double-click. So if I double-click on the production order card opens. And now from here, I can actually look at the same information. I can access the routing and see my operation number, the predecessor, the successor, how this is built. I can see start date, end date, and I would even see a couple of information more about setup time and runtime and so on and so forth. And so I think this is one of the essential advantages of having an add-in, is not only that the data does not leave the system, but also that you have these kind of shortcuts to NAV. So that means that you as a customer, you don't need to learn any kind of new technology, any kind of new icons, any kind of new control, but you continue to work in NAV. And if you want to look up something for this work center and the work center settings, you double click on assembly department and the work center card opens. And what you see here, by the way, is that in my demo environment, I have set up my work center assembly department in a way that it has a capacity of 3. And now when I select this production order here in the Gantt chart, and now I have to keep it selected and move the mouse like this to show what I mean, then you see here at the bottom of the screen a chart that corresponds with the operation that I had selected here. And what you see at the bottom of the screen is a type of chart that we call histogram or capacity load chart. So there is an outer line which is either 0 when there is non-working time, or which in this case is 3 during the working times, and this 3 corresponds with the capacity I've set and I showed you in the respective work center card. And then these gray areas actually indicate the amount of work that I have given to this work center at a specific point of time. So we see here that at that Monday, the 1st of February, I work on 2 production orders in the morning, then I have 3, 2, 3, so virtually a good capacity load here, whereas the next day I have some work to do and then a lot of free resource here, whereas here marked in red I also see that I have a resource overload here and here also in the morning of the 29th of February. And if I now grab the production order here and move it left and right, so if I change the start and the end date of this operation, then you see at the bottom of the screen kind of the impact that this has on the capacity load for this respective work and machine center. And if I kind of happy with the change I made, if I think, okay, this would represent a good load of my capacity, then you also see that all the successors are automatically moved, and if I move it to right, then all the successors are automatically pushed out. And also this is a setting that I can do in this setup dialog. And what you also recognize is now that I changed this operation and all its successors, you see this red border, and this red border indicates to you as a user that you changed this data, but not yet saved it back to NAV. So currently, this is a kind of scenario that you're building, and now you have a kind of different data here in the visual production schedule in the database. And if you say, okay, I'm happy with the changes and I need to update my database, then you push the save button, you need to confirm it. Then we do a couple of plausibility checks, and once this is done, you get the confirmation that the schedule had been saved, and then the red border vanishes again because now the data represent again the data that you have in the database. And so now if I move my mouse here from one operation to the next, you see that the histogram at the bottom of the screen actually automatically changes. So it always reflects the information, or it always corresponds with the work and the machine center that has the focus of the mouse. And so maybe we look at another example, which is over here. Yeah, and so when we do it like this, what we recognize here on the 4th of February at the CNC machine, my histogram at the bottom of the screen indicate, or this drilling machine anyway, or the drilling machine, it indicates to me, hey, there's a capacity conflict. So we have given 2 production orders to the drilling machine, but the drilling machine can only handle 1 production order at one point of time. And by the way, the information that we show is the information that is produced by NAV MRP. So with us building add-ins, we always treat NAV as the leading system, and we, as I said initially, we give you a visual interface to the data that you have in NAV. And if the data is not good, then you will immediately see. What we don't have the magic button that say, oh, please optimize the entire plan, but what we give you is kind of visual alerts for production orders, capacity issues, delivery time issues, where we think that you need to take care of. Because in the end, having an overload like this can lead to a couple of decisions. One decision would be, okay, I need to move out this production order to the next day because then I have free capacities here. But from here, you don't know the other production order that you compete with. And if the other production order you compete with is as crucial as this one, then an overload like this could also maybe mean that you do a night shift on the day before to get one of these 2 tasks done earlier, or that you do some overtime later this day to get both of this done. But what the information that you miss from here, from this production order-centric view, is the information with which other production order you compete here in the morning of the 4th of February. And in order to work on this, we have a second view, which is the resource view, where you can look at the exact same data, but now kind of through the glasses or through the lens of the work and machine center. So now I'm not looking at the structure of the production order, but I'm looking actually at the information of how busy my work and machine centers are, and if I have conflicts, I can immediately assess them and understand them, what is conflicting here with each other. And so at this 4th of February on my drilling machine, I see this orange bar and this blue bar, and orange, remember, is this is the same color coding like in the different chart in the previous chart. This means this is already a release production order, whereas this one is a planned one. And so if I don't want to decide at that point of time to run overtime here, or if I don't have a capability to run my drilling machine faster, then one idea would be to resolve this conflict, kind of to moving this production order here. So that I can start with is once the drilling machine operation, the released operation here is finished. So when we think about the purpose of this kind of chart, this is really to get first a high-level understanding of how busy your machine and your work centers are, and then also like I just did, to resolve potential resource conflicts. So when I put myself into the shoes of a production planner and I want to get this high-level picture, then what I don't like here is that really a high percentage of the screen is actually used by showing me the non-working time. And if I would, if my task would be to kind of plan the resource utilization of my machines, and here at Netronic I have to plan the resource utilization of my employees. And if I would think of having to do this with a graph like this, it would drive me crazy to see all these non-working times, because the time that I can plan is the working time. And so what we have on here is the capability that you can hide the work-free periods from this screen. And what we mean with this is that you can hide those work-free periods that are common to all work and machine centers. So this kind of area here is common work-free time to all work and machine centers, whereas this one here is specific to a few of them. So we have some work and machine centers that work in a one-shift approach and others in a two-shift approach. And this area here is specific work-free time to work and machine centers who are in the one-shift approach. And so if I click here, we have these little stripes, these gray stripes still on the screen, where we have the non-working time that is specific to some work and machine centers. But now I actually see a lot bigger part of the screen being used to show me the working time. And with this not being disturbed by all of this work-free period time information, I get a quite good overview of how busy my machines and my work and machine centers are at which point of time. And then if I have conflicts, like I showed you this kind of conflict where I moved an operation left and right to resolve this, because obviously both operations had to be processed on the drilling machine. But there could be other scenarios, like here we have a conflict at a machine center, which now in my setting is called Mike Siemens. And there are other machine centers in the same work center which have free capacity. And so if now Brian would be able to do the same kind of job that Mike does, then I not only can resolve a conflict by changing the start date, but I also can resolve a conflict by changing the routing. So I can also move it from Mike to Brian, then the conflict would be solved here, and we would still finish this operation at the same point of time. Another way of how to look and manage capacities is not only from this view, where we still look at the single operations, but what we also have is a third view, and this is more a report than an interactive chart, which is what we call the histogram view, which is a picture like this, which gives you these capacity load curves for all of your work and machine centers on one screen. And you can again look at the entire time frame, or you can pick out a certain week and from here see where you have areas where you might take real actions because you have a tougher overload. You see areas where you have nothing to do, and then you see areas like this, which is kind of half an hour towards the end of the day, and then maybe if you want to get this done, you have to talk to the employee or the machine operator, whatever this is, and talk about doing half an hour overtime to get this resolved. What is true for this view and all the other views we have, of course you can print what you have on the screen, so we can preview a printout, and then you get a suggestion by the tool. And because now I loaded this data looking 1 week back and 4 weeks into the future, I get a suggestion to split this. I think these are 7 pages times 2 pages. But if I want this have on 1 page, I can fit this to 1 page. And if I want to select a different time frame, because maybe I have a planning meeting where I want to plan and look at my expected capacity load for next week, and I want to take this information to my manager or bring it with me to a meeting, then I can also completely configure what is printed out. So I can also select a certain week. So let's select the last week or the first week of February here, and then I can apply this. I fit the information to page, and then I have my expected capacity utilization based on the current production schedule for all work and machines into one screen. I can print this, or I can create a PDF from here and share it with my colleagues. And this way of printing the information and also of fully configuring what you get here, this is true for all these three views. By the way, this kind of print dialog here originates from a time when we were building this XGANT tool, also for a lot of companies who were building project management system. And in the kind of old days where you had big engineering projects, people they wanted to plot the data on big A0 or A1 formats or even bigger, and then took the big piece of paper and put it onto the wall on their shop floor or in their engineering halls. And then they needed things like crop marks, and they needed things like folding marks, and these kind of options still are in here. So if you want to print a real big a big print from your production schedule or from a chart like this, then this is also still possible, because as I said, we have kind of under the hood technology that had been developed and been proven for the last kind of more than 10 years. So if we go back to this resource-oriented view, what obviously can happen when we work on production orders here, trying to resolve conflict and try to kind of level out the workload at the various work and machine centers, then obviously you will move bars left and right, and sometimes you work on this and then you do something like this, and then you see you not only get this red border, which means you change the data, but you also get this red hatching, and this now gives you the indication, hey, now with doing this kind of change, I'm moving the end date of this operation past the initially planned due date. And again, when we built the product, we had the kind of design decision if we want to allow this, that I can move this past the due date, or if we should put in a hard boundary that you would not be able to move it past this due date boundary. And again, we decided our main purpose is to deliver you a visual scheduling tool that gives you visual guidance, but that lets you as a user or lets your users make the ultimate decision. So there can be scenarios where I can't avoid this to happen. And then I am, as a user or as a planner, would like to take this decision as a conscious decision and not have a secret algorithm doing some math and some calculations and then coming to a decision I may not be able to understand or I would have taken differently. So again, you get, like with the histogram, when we look at the capacities, where you get a warning like, hey, need to take care for this drilling machine and look what is happening at that day at the drilling machine. This is the warning that we give you, and we give you also the warning when you move things past their due date. Where we currently don't give you a warning, but which is in many cases irrelevant information, is and this typically happens when you not move an operation to the right, so kind of make the start and the end date a later date. But if you think of starting a production order earlier, then I mean we can look at this example here, where we have a due date of the 13th of February, and now the typical scenario is that we get a call from our customer, and the customer asks us if we can deliver a couple of days earlier. And so what we can do from here very quickly, we can hover with the mouse over the operations and look at the histogram at the bottom of the screen and see if at the previous days we have some free capacity at these work and machine centers. And if we think that this is the case, we would be able to move this to the left. But what we don't see from here is actually if we would have enough material on stock to start to working on this production order earlier. So typically, as the data that we take is the data from the NAV MRP run. So obviously this scheduling approach that NAV provides you with has taken care that for this due date enough material should be here to start on the 8th of February. But what if I need to deliver on the 13th, but maybe on the 10th or on the 9th? Then we need to check this, not only if there's free capacity, but also if the material is available. And we included this information, and this is the feature that only is available for users starting with NAV version 2013. And then you can do a right mouse click on a production order and say, hey, show me the item availability by the bill of material level. And this is a standard NAV functionality that came with the 2013 release, and that now we again do not give you in a tabular way, but in a graphical way. So now the information that you see here, so when I did this, you see that this additional page opened, and the information that we give you is we have to produce a front wheel. This is the quantity from the production order, so we have to make 60 pieces, and this is the original demand date. So this is all production order specific information. This is the quantity, this is the due date, this is the product, and here is some information. So for that day we would be able to deliver 247, and so of course this would work. Additional information that you get from here, by the way, and this is in our action ribbon here, is that we can expand this so that we can have a graphical way of the bill of material for this product, and that we can also look at the parts that we would need to build this. And what we now can do is we can simulate how my material availability would look like if I would be asked to deliver, for example, at an earlier date. So we have this date picker here, and if we want to deliver on Wednesday the 10th, I can do this. And now if I leave this field here, all these figures get automatically updated. And now I can see, okay, if I would be asked to deliver on the 10th of February, these 60 pieces, I still would be able to do this. And then I can say assign demand date and close. And if I do this, everything here automatically moves to the left. And now we are finished with this on February the 10th. So this is information concerning the material availability, which we think is always relevant when you think of moving operations or production orders to the left. So start earlier, then you not only have to check the capacities, but also the availability of the needed material. And then maybe one other thing to take into account is really the amount of information we have on the screen. So of course this is demo data here. These are, I don't know, 30 production orders with kind of 40 with 5 to 8 operations each. So we can look at this here virtually on one screen. But we know that in reality data can become much more. And so we think it is important that you as a user can filter the data so that you can decide on which data you want to look at. And we have two types of filters that you can configure individually and that you can work with. The one is the data filter, and this data filter kind of manages the amount of data that actually gets pushed into the visual production scheduler. And this is something you would set up with the help of the solution systems folks from the setup menu here, and then you configure the data filter, or you can even do this from the NAV code unit. And a use case there would be, for example, if you would have people who would be responsible for assembly department and packing department and painting department, and other people would be responsible for the machine department. And really the machine department people, they don't need to know what is happening in the assembly department. And then you could set up when you implement the visual production schedules, you could set it up in a way that the machine department planner does not see the assembly department data, and vice versa. And this would be something that you typically would configure through the setup dialog through as a data filter, so that both people would also need to get less data into the visual production scheduler. But then for all the data you have loaded into the tool, there still might be the need to kind of reduce the amount of information you see on the screen, or to focus on just a few information. So maybe I don't know, I'm a salesperson and I'm responsible for selling bicycles. Then really I don't care about the touring bicycles, and I don't care about some of the components I need to manufacture. I just care about my bicycles that I have sold to a couple of customers. So I can go in here and say, okay, I just care about the bicycles. And so we don't have pre-configured filters, but when all this filter dialog is standard NAV functionality, and you can filter on any information on the underlying work center table, on any information on the underlying machine center table, and on any information on the underlying production order line table. And so in this case, I'm interested in a certain item, so in my bicycles, so I can just select this here and then either use this drop-down menu, or if I know the item number of my bicycle, and in my case it starts with a 1, I type this, and then I can select this, and now my filter is defined. I confirm this, and I activate this. I just see my all the production orders for my bicycles on the screen. And if I'm then not interested in all production orders, but only in those that are really released, where I know that people on the shop floor are working on this, then I can go in here again and say, okay, I'm not only interested in this item, but in the status. So let's say, hey, I'm only interested in the released bicycles. Then I can select this, and as the filter is activated, now I have the production schedule on the screen for the released bicycles. And if I want to see the full picture again, I deactivate the filter. So this is, I think, the kind of the tour through the visual production schedule, or an overview of what I initially introduced as what we do is fully integrated visual scheduling add-ins for Dynamics NAV. I think we looked at the major capabilities, things we are working on today in these days for the kind of upcoming spring release, is that we want to enhance the capabilities with which you can individualize information that you can see on the screen. So for example, that you as a user, or with the help of, for example, the solution system consultant, can configure the information in the tooltip text, can change the text on the bar, can change information here in the table. So all these tools that help you to make this kind of standard product fitting to your individual information needs without changing the entire structure of the product. These are tools that we're currently working on. And I think with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. I'm available for questions if you have some, and if you don't have any question, thank you very much for spending time with me today, and thank you again to Michael for giving me the opportunity to introduce the visual production scheduler add-in to you guys.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin. We really appreciate it, and thanks everybody for attending. Take care.